Welcome to Journey to Joy Live. I'm Dr. Enjoy, your host, and I have my wonderful guest, Dr. Carla Booker. You made it.
Lord, I'm here.
We're going to talk about our journey from grief to joy. And you have a book that came out
October 1st.
October 1st. So it's been out for a month and you're already bestseller?
Come on. That was the very first opening day.
Wow.
#1 bestseller on Amazon.
That's amazing. And I have your book right here. It comes in paper format. And if you're like me and you like to listen to books, because I bought it, but I still ended up listening to it.
Come on.
It's a very quick listen, a very quick read, an easy read.
And I narrated it. So.
And you narrated it. It's your wonderful voice. But I always like to start by saying how we met. How do I know you?
Well, we just found out we even have one of my big sisters is your cousin.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we are sorority sisters.
Sorority sisters. And I met you at our chapter retreat a year ago.
But I think I invited you to church before we even met. I think
so. Yeah. Because I was looking for a church and you said,
I put it into the chat.
Yeah.
And so now we go to the same church. We're in the same chapter. We have family in common. We just love each other.
Exactly. You're like the most amazing person. Seriously. I'm so glad you're here. And it was your idea to come on. You're like, I want to come on. Journey to Joy. I'm like, yay. So it's awesome. So what was it like? Is this your first book? That's the question. So what was it like writing the book? How did you come up with and decide?
A bunch of folks on Facebook know that when Kent got sick, this is, of course, the journey of my husband's death from terminal cancer. And he said when he first was diagnosed that he wanted me to tell everyone. He wanted it all to be on Facebook, everything to be on Facebook. So we posted several times a day, pictures of everything. And he said he wanted people to understand what real love looked like.
Oh, my goodness. And it's a true love journey.
Let me tell you.
Because it's called 71 Days. And it was a shocker for me to understand what the 71 days meant.
Yes. Yeah. So Kent was my first boyfriend in the 5th grade in California. Mm-hmm. And then we reconnected about 18 years old. And then I didn't see him again till I saw him on Facebook, foreshadowing, smoking his last cigarette.
Right.
And I sent a message and just said, wow, how brave of you. And da-da-da. And he said, what about your husband? And I don't know husband. And then he goes, I'm on my way. And I said, come on.
Oh.
And so we fell in love long distance and we got engaged in March of that year. So less than a year of 2014. And then he moved to Atlanta on the 29th of September for us to be together. And the next day I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Oh, and that's when he was diagnosed. And it sounded like you were kind of in love with him before that because you had known him since a kid.
Oh my gosh. I'm
like crushes
childhood boyfriend in the 5th grade. And so and I got to see him in the summers because he moved to Richmond. My grandmother was in Richmond. Mm-hmm. So there's always this kind of a stirring, I guess I'd say, in my spirit. And when I saw his picture on Facebook, it was this little beating of my heart. And he was an amazing person. He was an amazing person. I guess I'll say he is an amazing person. He was the first person really, I think, in my life that saw through all the stuff to the little soft underbelly and said, wow, you're amazing.
Wow.
And let me treat you because you're amazing. I love you because you're lovable.
Yeah.
And so it was a complete redefinition.
Lots of positive affirmations. It sounds like a lot of who you are now comes from that relationship.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think of that as the turning point in my life. You know, that I didn't become who I was always meant to be until I met him. I loved him. I took him, and I lost him in the physical realm. And it changed just everything I know about life, everything about myself, everything about loving and caring and giving. And all that.
Yeah. Because this is just the physical realm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Which is really, to me, knowing now the physical, it's nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, once I connected with you, now I know there's never been a time that we didn't love each other. And there will never be a time when we don't.
Wow.
If I never see you again,
that's deep.
The connection that we make is an eternity.
It's kind of like we already knew each other. That's a whole nother thing.
Clearly.
Yeah. So 71 days, how to say goodbye when death says hello.
Yes.
So, I don't know if we want to spoil. Do we want to tell everybody what 71 days means?
Sure. So we married 4 weeks into the diagnosis of cancer.
Yeah.
And he died 99 days after the first day of diagnosis. And we were married for 71 days.
You were married for 71 days. Oh my goodness.
And that, when you talk about vows, when you talk about till death do us part, right? Then I'm no longer married to him in the physical realm. And that time was 71 days. That was that was our eternity in those 71 days. And we lived so big and we lived so full out in those 71 days.
So how do you get from your own experience of grief to let me write this down and let me share it? I think in the book you mentioned something about watching from scratch, which I actually never seen. My husband saw it and he kind of alluded to what it was about. And I said, I can't watch that. So God bless you for watching it.
I had a best friend. She told me to watch it. Oh, it's so good. But she didn't tell me what it was about.
I don't think that was fair.
When I started watching it, I was like, why did you tell
me to watch this?
So From Scratch is about a woman who finds true love. And then I remember thinking at the beginning, well, this is kind of hokey. This is kind of Hallmark.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh no.
It was similar.
No, this is a fall in love with Mr. Wonderful and he's going to get cancer and die. Oh no.
Oh yeah.
But then I was like, no, I can do this. I can handle it.
Yeah.
And I did, but it was a lot of moaning and wailing and crying and falling apart. And I love that part of telling in the book because what I said, my husband, I watched it with my current husband, I'm remarried.
Yes.
And we're sitting there watching it together and I start wailing like a shot dog. And he's like, what should I do? What should I do? And should I turn it off? And I said, no, don't turn it off. Don't turn it off.
Right.
And I said, can I tell you what I'm really feeling?
Yeah.
And he said, yes. I said, it was the most excruciatingly horrible experience of my life. And I wouldn't have missed a moment of it.
Right. That's exactly what you said in your book. Oh,
and he was like, what does that mean?
Wow.
And it meant that it defines me now. Going through that, I know that there's nothing that I can't, that God isn't going to pull me through and that there's a reason for it, so that just because it feels bad doesn't mean it is bad.
And it's so great for you to be vulnerable enough to put it on paper so that we all can learn it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's about you. It's sort of a memoir, but also teaching us self-care. If we're ever a caregiver for someone who has terminal illness, what we can do about it.
Absolutely. And I think I was being obedient. It took me a while. I tried to sit down and type this thing out and I could not get it done.
Was the emotion coming out?
It was just, I don't know. It was a block, I think. I guess I was a little bit afraid, but then I was obedient. God kept saying, it has to be written. You have to leave this behind. People have to know how to deal with this. And it's a transformation of our conversation about grief and death and what it means. So my mission and my stand is that the suffering around grief and death is extinguished completely. And if not extinguished, then definitely minimized.
Because that's what I was thinking. Like when we talk about journey from grief to joy, I feel like a lot of grief kind of passes or minimizes, but maybe the grief is still there as an undertone because we never forget those people that have gone before us.
But the word grief is so dark.
Yeah.
When I think about Kent now, there's just like he's in the room right now. Whenever I bring him up, he's right here. And he's going, yes, tell him everything, tell it all.
You think of the positive things. And that's what I tell people when you're going through grief, think about those happy memories and the positive things. My dad passed away 2 years ago in November. So November is always, that kind of month for me. And I learned handiwork and how to build things from him. So I just kind of think of all the positive things.
Well, and also if November is your month, then why can't it be a celebration?
Exactly.
So that when you think of him, like just he's here. There's a spirit that's present. And what if this is an expansion of the way you knew him, the way you know him, and the way you love him? It's like, Dad, that was you. I love you too.
Exactly. Yeah, it is like that.
And then, there's extended grief. So if you're going a year, 18 months, 2 years, complicated grief, that is not the life that we're intended to live.
Yeah, and to be sitting in that grief, especially if it's grief where you have the social occupational impairment, you're not able to do anything, not able to sleep or work. That makes a lot of sense. And you do address that. I'm jumping it because I wanted to ask some more questions before.
Whatever.
But you did mention giving yourself about 30 to 45 days of that just grieve. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do anything. And then after that, trying to get back into it.
Well, we're even kind of, I'm shifting it a little bit to 71 days. What if you give yourself 71 days?
I love it.
To say, okay, Because you know what? I think there's a place where the sadness of the loss of someone is comforting because you really are getting with the fact that they're physically not in your space anymore. You can't touch them. You can't kiss them. You can't hug them. You can't hold them. You can't go to lunch with them anymore. That part. And it's profound. So yeah, give yourself time to absolutely marinate in all of the missing of them.
And for some people, doing nothing works, but then some, they do have to get back in to whatever it is.
But what if we say it about 71 days, let's say 3 months, that we say, okay, now this is my life. Here I am.
Yeah.
What am I going to make of it?
And being able to process it. And if you need therapy, going to therapy and keeping that beyond the 71 days if you need it.
Absolutely. Well, my thing is, absolutely. Golly, I'm talking about 71 days, 71, 90 days to say, here is my new normal.
To adjust to that.
And what is my life going to look like going forward in the fullness and the abundance and the overflow that life is supposed to be for us, that we're promised. Okay, what am I willing to do now to get myself to that space?
Exactly.
And you know, then I talked too about, you know, the cultural norms and, you know, our little myths and, you know, you have to mourn for a year and wear black and not be happy and not have a good day. Oh my gosh, can you believe he married someone and she's only been gone 3 months and all of that stuff that we do.
Yeah.
What if this person is physically gone, physically not in this realm, and I have an opportunity now to create an entirely new life? That doesn't mean that I am minimizing it.
Or that you forgot about them.
Or that I forgot about them.
Or that they never existed.
Right? Yeah. And so in that, can we create a space for people to do it however they do it without our own judgment and without this idea that you're not being respectful or, you know, he must not have meant anything to you.
Right. Have people said that to you?
I have a girlfriend that told me, we're cool now, but she said to me, I guess she just wanted to be married when I got remarried.
Wow. And even it was, just 4 years? It was just
2 years.
But it was 4 years.
We met 2 years after Kent died.
Okay.
And then we married 2 years after that. So so
that's actually a long time, especially to give it 2 years. But then there's no like actual time that you have to go by, like, oh, I have to wait 5 years, that kind of thing. And grief is different. Grief looks different for different people. Some people do it in silence. Some people, they're angry, they're sad, they're upset, they're worried, anxious, whatever. And you mentioned a lot about being angry at God. And you do talk about past traumas and things of the like. You don't seem like an angry person at all. Tell me about your journey from grief to joy, because you are so joyful. How did you get to this joy?
Oh my gosh. You know,
from that anger.
When he got sick, I don't think I realized how selfish I was and how walled off I was. I think I knew that there was some of that. And where I put it and where I felt that I flourished, what was it at work? As a healer, as a physician.
Right, because you're a physician.
That part, got it. I want to be a great mom. Girlfriend? Wife? Not so much. A lot of trust issues, a lot of what about me? What about me? What about me? What happens to me? Who's going to look out for me? A lot of that in my life until then. And so when he got sick, and then I realized I was going to have to be willing to sacrifice everything, my own comfort, my sleep, you know,
and be that person.
And be that person for him.
And after a while, you adopted that and you loved it because you felt that if someone else did anything for him, you were like, no, I'm the caregiver.
Didn't want anybody tying his shoes.
Yeah.
Didn't want anybody feeding him. You know, and I knew I had to have that, but it was like, oh, I reveled in it. And then I got that it was an honorable place to stand.
Right.
And that it erased all of that selfishness. And then after that, the selfishness was really gone. There was nothing to protect because what I got this was God's love all along. God used Kent as a conduit to say to me, you're precious and you're beautiful and you're wonderful right here, right now, just as you are.
That took a lot of growth. Coming from selfishness to selflessness and being able to give yourself to someone else.
Come on. And I think the greatest honor I have is my daughter that I had when I was 20. My daughter says to me all the time now, Mom, you are so intentionally loving us. Like really out of myself, hadn't seen this kid in 2 weeks. Got to get over there. You know, really intentionally making sure that the people that I love know that I love them and that they feel it and that they see it. And I think that the best place I did that before, Kent, was at work. I could give my whole self.
You were always a
at work.
caregiver.
Always, always,
Like
always.
when it comes to being a physician.
Always. And a healer. And felt like, I did obstetrics for 20 years, 13, 14 years. And I would tell the women, this is my baby till it comes out. Like that. Like,
yeah,
this is
you
my
were
child.
there for them. And you went to 2 residencies. I meant to have you introduce you. We just really jumped right in. I meant to have you introduce yourself. But you are an OB doctor. It sounds like you practiced for about 13, 20 years, you said, and then went back to family medicine residency because you just didn't have enough education.
It was like I have to do something different. I was in private practice, exhausted, and went back and did another residency thinking I was never going to do obstetrics again at Morehouse School of Medicine. Got hired by them when I finished my second residency. I was doing indigent care at Grady. Loved it. And this OB clinic came available. And back then, family medicine residencies had to have a certain amount of obstetrics.
Anyway, right.
And they had to have a certain amount. And we were always lacking on that when we were getting reviewed. So we were bringing in 25 to 30 deliveries a month for the residents. And then I, became academics and started a 4th year elective, chair of maternal child health and director. And
so cool.
It was great. It was really great.
Awesome. So when it comes to being a caregiver, it sounds like there's definitely some stages. And a lot of people probably go through similar stages or different stages. But going through that, and I don't want to call it selfish, we're using the word that you use, that selfish stage of, I don't want to do this. I want to be out there. And then transitioning and growing to that selfless stage where, okay, I'm the caregiver, I give my all, but then getting to that stage of back to you of, I need self-care so that I can continue to be that great caregiver.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, now I would say, and as I talk to women that are in the situation or people in the situation, you got to say that stuff out loud at the beginning.
To yourself or?
You got to tell somebody.
Whoever. Okay.
You might even want to tell, this is your husband. Man, you know what? I'm scared to death. We always are sitting around trying to be strong for each other. What does that even mean? I can't cry around him. Why not?
Yeah. I guess you feel like they will feel that they're a burden. That's probably what people feel.
They're going to feel like they're a burden anyway. So what if I'm saying to this person that we are one in oneness of the marriage to say, babe, you're my best friend. Let's talk this thing all the way out. Let's talk about how angry we are. Let's talk about, God, what are you thinking? Let's get there. Because then we can get it out of the way.
Scream, shout,
right?
Whatever,
and he can then say to me, how are you feeling? And I can say, I am exhausted, but I'm here for you.
That's good that you were allowed to do that.
Well, we didn't do it.
Right. Oh,
we didn't do it.
Gotcha.
We didn't. He didn't want to talk about anything. He said, why would I want to sit? I said, babe, we haven't even spent time together. He said, why would I want to talk to the most beautiful woman in the world about what? Death? Sickness? Cancer? I'm not going to do it. I've got to mobilize all of my energy and my strength to myself. I've got this fight ahead of me. So it was a shift in our relationship also.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? What if I had just said, I got stuff I want to talk about. And every time I said it, he was, can't do it.
So he didn't want to talk. And then, so what did you do? How did you deal with it?
That's when I think it was really great though. I think God knew I needed to separate myself from this constant infusion of love and wonderfulness as the way I was able to experience my day, because I didn't know how long this was going to last.
Yeah. So you couldn't do that for years.
But he was never going to be the same person.
Yeah.
He had whole brain radiation about 2 weeks into the diagnosis, and whole brain radiation shrinks the brain. So he had dementia very early. Yeah. And so very much change in personality, very much change in communication, very much change in memory. And so I had to love who I knew he was, not who I saw in front of me.
Right. Oh, that's so scary. Because I know my husband says all the time, he says, if I'm ever not there anymore, he's just like, take me out, but you can't do that.
Right. But, can you know? I guess that's why The Notebook is one of my favorite movies. Because
oh, wow. That's such a beautiful movie forever.
He remembered who she was, no matter what he was presented with. He knew who she was, and he knew that she loved him. And he was sitting waiting for those 5 minutes of lucid thought where she came back to him every day. He was reading the story.
Exactly.
So that's it. That's it. Can I love who I know he is? even though he's changing, forever changed.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people go through that for
Yes.
sure. For
And,
sure.
and then try to hang on to it and hold it by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there are people who think that therapy is, scary. Stuff's going to come out that I don't know if I'm ready to deal with. But
did you ever think about therapy?
Oh my,
did you do it, or are
been
you?
in
Gotcha.
been in therapy.
Yeah.
Been.
Yeah. Therapy.
Because so much trauma. And so then I think that trauma leaves conversations in you that say, it ain't gonna work out.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you trying? This happiness thing, this is not for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the trauma from childhood that says, well, if you were so great, then how come these things happen to you?
Right. And do you think the trauma from childhood affects how we grieve?
Oh, absolutely. Because I think for me, at least, the trauma, abuse, neglect, I think all of that, then here's this man that is just, ripped from my life in 3 months. It's like, what God, are you laughing?
Yeah.
You think this is a joke?
Yeah.
This is my life.
Right.
And it took 2 years for me to really get to where I could even look and think about talking to God. I was so angry and I was so hurt.
Feeling like, why would you bring him in my life?
20 months.
Love of my life, and it just rip him away.
20 months. I said, that 20 months you could have taken it out, sewn it back together. No one would have been the wiser. But he had a plan. And there would be no story, and there would be no journey, and there would be no wisdom, and there would be no giving back. So a lot of the book, I talk about what we didn't do, what I would have done differently, what I know now, what self-care looked like. All I had when he was first diagnosed, I'd started this 2-mile walk on Facebook, which I do. It's every October. It's every 3 months. So I just finished one.
You did. You were doing it every day, right?
Every day for the month of October. And it was my one place that I didn't have to take care of anybody.
That's what I love about running. Running is my therapy. I don't have to take care of the kids. I don't have to be wife. I don't have to be any of those things. Exactly.
And I didn't understand how sacred it was and how much I needed it.
Very sacred.
Until that night, I said it in the story, that it was raining. And I hadn't gotten my 2 miles in. And to walk it, then it would take me about 45 minutes just to do a nice, easy walk. I think it was like 10:30. So I had plenty of time. PM. We'd gone all day and I hadn't gotten it done.
Gotcha.
But I was committed. And in this challenge, if you didn't post and get it done by midnight, you're out of the challenge.
Wow.
You're out. And I was not going to be out. This was my
10:30.
I was out there and it was raining. And he said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm putting on my shoes. I got to go do my 2 miles." And he's like, "But babe, what if you get sick? I got to do my 2 miles."
Yeah, you don't get sick in the rain. I run in the rain. I love running in the rain.
So I said, and I didn't really understand that it was so sacred. So that was the very beginning. Good. And I was still, I was in Richmond, Virginia with him doing therapy, we didn't have pandemic then, doing my therapy by phone. Wow. Sitting on the floor in the hall at the hospital, dealing with it with my therapist. What is going on today? And I can't believe this. It feels like it's so unfair. Haven't I been through enough? So I think that's where the trauma, haven't I been through enough? What is left for me? Is this how my life is going to go? Am I going to just keep having trauma after trauma after trauma?
A lot of people who go through so much chronic trauma, those are the questions they ask.
Right?
Exactly. There's no real answer.
But what if now when I have a trauma or something bad happens, I know God is there.
Yeah.
So it's his opportunity.
You came back to God. So what did it? You said it took about 2 years?
2 years.
How did you get back to God?
So I tried everything. I bought a Porsche and I spent a lot of money and I traveled and I danced and I drank and I did a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
And
dancing in cars are okay.
it didn't work.
Oh, but it didn't work. That's the thing.
Because it's not going to work. If you're trying to go around it and you're trying to go over it and you're trying to go under it, until I faced it head on and I was willing to walk through every bit of it. It couldn't leave. It can't.
And God was waiting on you.
He was, right?
He said, you know what? I'm here.
Girl.
You can buy all those things and do all those things. You know, we have a question here. When we were talking about the 71 days, taking 71 days to grieve, can 71 days become crippling, especially when having to remain effective at work?
Oh, man.
I mean, it really depends on the person. I think we're talking about At the max, like take 71 days at the max.
But here's the thing,
right?
I've been in conversation about this, and I'm talking to people in human resources now. I got 2 days of bereavement.
That's not
2 days, and was expected to be back at work full time, ready to roll Monday morning. So what are human resources, what are companies doing to provide support? So that
I know my organization tells people take as long as you need. I don't know what that means. Like, what if you say, okay, I need 3 months? I don't know.
Well, and if it's
FMLA, you know.
But is that paid? And can people afford it?
But is it paid?
Take all the time you need. You can get a doctor to write you FMLA and have the time off.
But that's not paid.
Can you afford it?
That just protects your job. Right.
And I had the insurance. So even while he was sick, I had to make sure I was there and managing things because that was how he was going to get his treatment.
But did you take off? Because there was a phase where you weren't. Okay.
I did. And my boss was amazing. While I was up there, I didn't even think about the job. And my boss went to human resources and found out, he said, Carla, you can maintain your benefits if you work 9 hours every 2 weeks. He went to bat for me.
Oh.
So I had my little, my emergency fund. And in order to keep my benefits, but that was him, my boss.
That's good that you were able to do
going to human resources. Yeah. And then of course, I think I was 3 weeks in and like we got married and I was back to Atlanta the next day because I'd be at work.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about the support of the spouse that you married after Kent. I know that's interesting. He is amazing.
How about his name is Kenneth.
And his name is Kenneth. That's what I thought. I was like, wait a minute, he has a similar name.
Right.
There was a time where you asked him, he says, how much talk or how much kid talk is too much? He said, baby, it's not too much. And he's like, if you love Kent, I love Kent because he made you who you are now. That is great.
Look,
what about the spouses who feel, and they probably wouldn't feel right saying it, but they probably in their head might feel like, well, no, don't talk about him. And maybe that's okay that they feel that way. But what are your thoughts? What do we say to those spouses?
So I'd say this. I'm going to first talk about a woman who is a widow who is dating.
Yes.
That's a conversation early in your dating.
Yeah.
Like this person, man, he changed my life. And when I start getting around anniversaries, I need to talk. And I dated a guy before I met Kenneth who was like, can't do that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right? So this is who I am.
Okay.
This is me. This is who I am. And he was like, it's too much. Yeah. But I think that when I think about that person, he would have to be really set and really mature in himself.
Confident, secure.
Right? And to believe that, this isn't love that's replacing the love that I had for Kent. In the expanded love that we're talking about, can I love Kent, who is no longer physically here, inside of my love for my husband?
Honestly, I think it's the same thing as like you have a love for a parent who may have passed away and you continue to talk about them with someone else. A sister, a sibling, whoever. So I think it's okay to continue to talk about that person.
But
even if it's a spouse.
Why not?
Right. Why wouldn't you be able to?
But my husband, he knows who he is, and he knows who he is for me.
Yeah, it would be a security thing.
And he'd also dealt with death in his family.
He understood death,
right?
And grief, and how that works.
And of course, we've been married now 4 years, and every year there's less talk.
What month? What's the anniversary of Kent's death?
January 6th.
Okay.
Yeah, January. So it was from September 30th was the diagnosis. So all of this, October 27th was our wedding, our anniversary. It was 2 weeks ago.
That just happened. That's around the time where you released the book.
October 1st.
We're within the 71 days right now.
That's right. So, with the first year, I'll be honest with you, the first year, every single day, September 30th, October 1st, October 3rd, we started radiation. October 5th, October 9th,
every year you're thinking about that day.
But that first year, it was, and then Facebook brings up memories, and I had posted the entire experience. So it was bringing up pictures.
Did you end up deleting those because of that, or they're still
I printed out the whole. I have them in 2 volumes. I printed out the Facebook posts for those 2 years. I have them, and they still come up. They come up every year.
But as time goes by, you're able to deal with that and cope with that.
It's
It doesn't
softer.
hit you as hard.
It's
You know,
softer.
someone described to me the way grief was to them. They described it as a box with a ball inside it. And when someone first passes away, that ball is huge. So it's going to hit the sides of the box more
Oh,
strongly.
I like that.
But as you go on, as time goes on, that ball gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's hitting the sides of the box less. And I was like, you know what? That's great.
That's really good.
Because the ball is always going to be there,
Yes.
but it's a less of an impact. So,
Well, and then something will hit the ball and hit it up against the wall, right? Something will happen. I'll get a phone call or, you know, something, or I'll pay Facebook post and it'll be like, oof, ouch. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, I got it. Oh, okay, you're right here. Okay, let's keep it moving, right? So, you know, I think that don't forget there's so many cultural conversations that we have about grief that you're not supposed to be happy until blank. And I've even met people who, when they're happy, they immediately pull it back because it's too soon to be happy. It's disrespectful to be happy.
Oh,
Their father died
yeah.
and now they're at Disney
like they
World. I'm
can't
making
be
that
happy.
up. Right.
Right.
And I'm having a blast with my but he only died 6 months ago. Is it okay for me to be this happy? And he's not here. So what if we could get rid of the whole conversation of not here?
Yeah, or being guilt.
If I could get rid of not here, then I could do
'Cause he is
anything.
here.
He's right here.
Right. And I believe if I dream about that person that's died, that's really them.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
My father literally came to me in my dream right after he died. And he said, I'm going through a 9-step process to get to heaven and it's going well. That was what he said in my dream. And I was like, okay, I guess he's going to heaven.
And how specific.
It's very specific. I believe that.
You know, I met a lady, I was working at a free clinic the other night and I was there and I had some of my books and she said, you know, we didn't know each other well. And she said, I need to read this. She started crying. And I said, is it your mother? She said, yeah, it was her mother that died. And I said, what are you feeling? How long's it been? I think it'd been within a year. And she said, I don't think I did enough.
Enough for them?
She was in healthcare.
So
she felt like she should have done more for the diagnosis and the illness. And I said, do you really believe that there's anything that you can do to change the moment that this person goes home?
Right.
That their body is no longer here.
Right. And that reminds me of another thing in the book, because you mentioned that, you know, and sometimes it's nice to know what's going on in the details about the process or their illness or the treatment, but then sometimes it's nice to just be oblivious and not know and be on cloud 9.
He asked me to be his wife.
Yeah.
He didn't ask me to be his doctor.
Right.
He didn't.
Because you're a doctor who knows things, but that felt comforting for you to not have to be his doctor.
Exactly.
That's how it.
And so, you know, we had pathology and stuff. I didn't go to the books and find out. I remember I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was at the hospital. She's an oncologist, and I was talking to her, and we had a great little conversation. And I hung up, and I forgot something, so I called her back. And when I called her back, she was in tears. And I said, Ruth, what? She said, you don't understand. You don't understand. You don't. And I said, what? She goes, Carla, he's not going to survive this. He's not. Because
you were just like,
I hadn't read anything.
Right.
Because he
did
asked
a part
me
of
not
you
to.
Think that he could survive years and years, but you just
that wasn't even in the cards.
I
was living today and making today great. And then tomorrow I'm making that day great.
That's important because
think
think
so
about
too.
it. What if the 71 days was you crying the whole time, desperately trying to save him, but you actually cherished and was present
every single day?
Oh, wow.
It was great. It was great. That. So that I think is the hard part is that, yes, sadness is a part of it.
Which route do you go?
There's a part of it.
Yeah.
But I needed to be his wife, you know, and when she said that, I was like, okay. He didn't want to know the, percentage of 2-year progression-free survival. He didn't.
Ooh, I would not have wanted to know that. Or like, you only have a couple months. Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that. And it was great too. And I'm talking about in the book, we didn't establish roles. That would have been great. Okay, babe, when we go to the doctor, I know you don't really like doctors. Do you want to just sit there, nod your head, and I'll be taking notes and making sure that we don't forget anything? You just go and I'll be the scribe. Mm-hmm. Some people, as a patient, they want to be all into it and asking all the questions. Yeah. They don't remember what's being said. Yeah. I'm still on the back being the scribe. Some people don't want to go at all and they make up stuff. Nope, we got to go. We have chemo next week. You have to eat. You want your methadone, you got to eat. Mm-hmm. He said, that's bribery. I said, that's marriage.
Gotcha.
You've got to have some calories in here. We got chemo next week. Yeah. So there was part of it, I had to push him and hold him and stand for him to, hey, 2%. It was 2% 2-year progression-free survival. So that meant that in 2 years, 98 out of 100 people are not here.
Wow.
So, and I heard that.
And what's the name of the cancer?
He had adenocarcinoma of the lung. Adeno. And
of the lung, which spread to his brain.
And immediate. That was how we found it. No symptoms before that. No coughing, no weight loss, no nothing.
Okay. And when he decided to stop smoking, that initial post you saw, he didn't know he had it. He was just stopping smoking.
And he had it.
But he had it.
Oh. Now, and I should say this, there is a lung cancer screening that you can do. That didn't come out until right after he died. So now if you're a high-risk person, 50 years old, with lung problems, 55 years old, with long-term smoking, they do a CT scan.
Okay.
And they do that CT scan every year. And they can find the tumor when it's small before it spreads. They take out the lobe of the lung, and we've got cure now.
Well, now that we're sounding like we're getting into more of an education part. No, in a good way. Because what can we teach our audience? Yeah. Is this kind preventable? Is this the kind that gets caused by?
So his was specifically from smoking. So there are certain genetics of his cancer that we found were associated. ALK is what it's called. That was associated with smoking.
Because I went to medical school too, but it's not out of my scope.
And I learned so much.
Right.
So if you're a heavy smoker, and even without symptoms, you should be getting that CT scan every single year. And your doctor orders it. It's part of the USPSTF guidelines, and we can save lives.
Yeah. Okay. This has been wonderful. I mean, wow, we're almost at 40 minutes. I mean, I could just keep talking to you more and more. I feel like we didn't get to everything, but that is because everybody needs to get this book. Audible or Amazon, where else?
So you can do Kindle. You can do the paperback. You can go to my website and order from Amazon. And then I narrated the Audible. So
that's a beautiful book. So where can we find you? You on Instagram?
IG is The Doc Lady. On Facebook right now is Carla Lorraine. And there is a Dr. Carla Booker Facebook page that is, we're putting content and stuff.
Oh, nice.
It's there. Okay. And on the website is drcarlabooker.com.
So we're going to have a movie at some point.
Come on.
I mean,
this Dr. Carla Booker is drcarlabooker.com. DR.
Gotcha. Oh, DR, not actual doctor spread out. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. You can come back anytime you want. This has been great talking about grief. How can we journey from grief to joy, and then also include our self-care when it comes to being a caregiver, and then even after and experiencing that grief.
Your loved one is right there. Your loved one is wherever you need them to be, whenever you need them to be there. Look for them. Look for clues and ideas, and, I see butterflies. I see certain colors, and it's like, oh, yeah, I love you too. Yep, I'm thinking about you too.
That's so beautiful.
Right? Because otherwise we feel like we've lost something, and they're not lost. We know where they are.
They're there. Thank you for everyone who's been watching, and thank you for your comments. Bye, everyone.